Everyone, Ryan here with VH800 Technologies. Today we're going to be setting up the VH800 FL. But before we get started, I kind of want to walk around and show you guys exactly what everything is on this machine. Just to put this out here, this is how you're going to receive your machine. You will have some saran wrap underneath that cardboard box that this thing ships in, but this is how it's going to look whenever you get all of that taken off. Your foot pedal might be placed a little bit differently, but that's here nor there. To kind of walk around the machine, you've got your main drain here at the bottom. This is to take all the media and water out of this cabinet. This second ball valve up, this is strictly for water. So it leaves the media in the bottom and you can drain the water off the top. Then your overflow valve here, this is to drain off the excess water that's brought into the cabinet after you use your closed loop system or your freshwater connection. If we keep coming around the back here, this is actually where your window rinse solenoid is if you ever have to replace it or if it gets kind of stopped up. This is your connection. If you have an open loop machine, this will have your normal standard garden hose fitting on it. This is set up for closed loop, so it will go into our basins. Up top, this is actually your air solenoid. This is what allows air to go into the machine. And then before that, you have your precision regulator. This, of course, is to regulate your main air inside the machine. And then down here, this is your secondary regulator. This is for your overflow valve as well as your basins. And you want to keep this around 60 PSI. And then on the front, your last feature for the VH800 FL is the window wiper, which everyone loves the wiper. Inside the cabinet. And also I do need to mention your 800 FL will not ship with the window door. This was a demo machine. We took it to Barber. For all of you that were able to make it out, we were glad to meet you guys. You've got your blast gun here. On the bottom, the larger hose is your slurry line. Your top is your air line. You also have your internal rinse. This is for rinsing parts down. Again, if you have an open loop machine, this will come from your freshwater connection. If you have a closed loop machine, that's from the basins to the side. And also you have your exhaust stack, which we can actually go ahead and put this on. It goes in the flange on the rear. And then you kind of just push it in. That's as good as that's going to be. Now your closed loop system is going to come inside the machine. I'll take that out whenever we get it into position. But I think that's a really good quick rundown of this machine. And again, before we get started, if you guys do have any questions during setup or if you have any issues that you run into, remember our number is 828-202-5563. You guys can call us at any time. We'll make sure to help you guys out. So I've got the 800 FL in position right now. I'm gonna go ahead and take these basins out. Your machine, whenever it arrives, it will be on a pallet. It will be bolted to the pallet, so you have to take that off. You can choose to leave it on the pallet. Typically we do because it's easier to use a forklift around them, just to move them in and out. But that's totally up to you. Now when you set your basins up, you're gonna have your larger basin here on the bottom, and then you're gonna have your pump plate. So typically what I like to do is put my bottom basin as close as I can to the stand. Then I take my top basin and my overflow, I put it away from the machine, and you want to put it directly underneath this overflow valve. Then take your basin plate here. You want to have your connections, so that's these empty holes here pointing back towards the machine. And that's because whenever you put your hoses in, it makes certain that they're long enough. Additionally, this hose, you want to make sure that it actually makes it down inside the bottom basin, and then it just sits neatly on top of it like that. Next up, you have your air. This is the smaller hose that's coming out of the top of this diaphragm pump right here. This is simply a push to connect fitting, and you're going to take it and you can kind of route it wherever you please. But on the back of the machine, if you can see it right here, there is a Y, and it's going to go in the empty spot. Then you're just going to simply take it and push it in. And just like that, your diaphragm pump has air. If you guys have an open loop machine, if you've opted for the open loop, this will have a normal garden hose fitting. So you just need to have a fresh water supply available to the machine. You'll simply screw it in here and you're good to go. If you have your closed loop machine, it will have this fitting, which is made for your diaphragm pump. You can actually bring it down and then hook it into the diaphragm pump. There's actually a clip underneath. You can kind of see it moving up and down. That's what locks this hose in. It grabs on this back portion of the fitting. If you do not flip this up and you put air on your machine and there's water in the basins, it will actually shoot it out and flood your shop, which is not something we want happening, okay? So again, push it down before you get started. Take your hose, put it in. And additionally, your machine will not have water in it like ours does right now. That's just because I just recently cleaned it out. Now, if you guys couldn't hear, I'll do it again. There's actually gonna be an audible click whenever you eventually get it in there. So that's it taking it out. And then when you push it up, that's the click you're gonna be listening for. That means that this is nice and secure. With that, the basins are good as far as connections go. Also, your machine is gonna ship with this little cup. This is a media density cup. We'll address it here in a second. It's not necessary to use at startup because you'll put the specified amount in and you'll be all right. But as you continue to use your machine, this will become nice and handy. Let's go ahead and do water. So when you're adding water to your machine, you can actually just add it directly onto the floor. And it's just as simple as opening up your water supply and letting it flow. Now, before you do that, one big thing that you want to check is to make sure that your ball valves are closed. Because if they're not, again, you will flood your shop. And the reason that we set the basins here before we start adding water to the machine is because since there's no air on the machine currently, this top overflow valve can actually overflow. And that's gonna tell us whenever we've reached the appropriate amount of water inside the cabinet. Additionally, you're gonna wanna make sure that your front basin ball valve is also closed. That way, again, you don't have any leakage when this starts to overflow. We'll address this more whenever we actually get into filling the basins. So as you guys can see, it's starting to overflow. So that means I can actually go and turn the water off. And what I'm gonna allow the machine to do is actually equalize. So it's gonna allow all that water to drain out. And one of the big things is, you don't want to add water to your basin as it's still doing this because you're not sure how much water is going to come out and you could overfill it. And you also don't want to have water in your basins beforehand, again, because if you accidentally overfill it too much, then you will overfill your basins. So I'll let that continue to equalize and then we'll add the water to the basins. So that's slow enough for me. I'm going to go ahead and continue filling the basins. Again, you want to make sure that that front ball valve on that bottom basin is closed. And the levels that you need to fill this up to is just have your top basin directly in line with the overflow. That will naturally be the water level in the top basin. As for your bottom basin, you can fill it between 1 to 2 inches from the top. I typically do mine about 2 inches. You don't want to, of course, overfill it. And you want to make sure, again, that it's close to the top because this is what you're going to be pulling from whenever you're rinsing your parts. So now the basins are completely filled. I'm about 1 inch from the top on this bottom basin. So that means we're actually done with the water. So I'll go ahead and put it over here. And then we can proceed with plugging the machine in and actually getting air on it. Now with the standard 800 FL, it's just gonna be 110 volts. So you can just plug it directly into your wall. If your GFCI does trip, you do have the reset button up top, so you can just press that. Typically it should not. And then you also have your foot pedal, which of course, very important for blasting. Go ahead and set that in front of the machine. Now we can go ahead and get our air situated. So you do have this filter on the front and it's gonna ship just like this. That way you can hook it into whatever kind of air supply you are wanting to. Here, we're gonna use a push to connect. So go ahead and grab that. And just as an example, if you're running something like a normal air truck, you can get a 1/2 inch and just put it directly in there. That's what I'm gonna be running here, is just a push to connect. And now I can take our main air supply line and just push it right in. So now I can actually turn the machine on and add air to it. So now we've got lights and I'll go ahead and add some air. You're gonna hear the diaphragm pump run. That's just because it's trying to build pressure. But now if we use our internal rinse, You can see that's just trying to purge the line. It's still gonna have some air in it. But just like that, we've got air on the machine. At this point, before you actually run the pump, one thing I wanna say is make certain that it is sitting up, and you wanna make sure that your agitation tubes are pointing down. We do have some videos on our knowledge base page that show how to check that. But again, sometimes in shipping, the pumps get knocked around. You just wanna make sure that it's sitting vertical and that the agitation tubes are pointing downward. With that being said, we can actually test the machine. Right now, I'm sitting at around 120 PSI, so I'm just gonna bump that down to about 80. And then checking the regulator on the back, it is exactly where it should be. So I'm gonna leave that as it should be. That is all set before we ship it to you guys. That's because we test everything here. But I can actually go ahead and yep, it's functioning just like it should. Now your window rinse, you can set it to wherever you would like. I typically like to set mine a little further back so I have a better spray of the window. And then for your wiper, in this position, this is actually the off position. So if it's twisted down to the left, the center position is kind of like a medium speed, and then all the way to the right is a high speed. So now that we know that everything functions like it should, I'm actually gonna go ahead and add media to it. Now, with a machine with a pinch valve, when you step on the foot pedal, it actually closes it. And again, the timing for which it closes is all preset. So what I'm gonna do here when I'm adding the media is I'm gonna make sure everything's closed properly. I'm gonna hit the foot pedal. That's gonna close that pinch valve. Then I'm gonna get my media. I'm gonna put it, you can actually put it directly on the floor, or you can put it below the floor. I typically put it below. If you put it on top, just wash it down. But the reason is, you don't want to add your media in and then all of it run out directly. Again, you're gonna step on the foot pedal first. That's gonna close this pinch valve, which means you can add your media in. It's gonna allow it to settle a little bit, and then it will open and overflow the excess water that's displaced. Let's go ahead and check out this media. So when you guys order media from us, it's actually shipped for the 800 FL. It's shipped in a 25-pound box, which is exactly what that machine needs. And if you ever question what type of abrasive it is, when you get your box, it is all labeled right here, which is something you definitely want to check. And another big thing here is, again, we do have live support all the time. So if you guys are ever curious if there's a better abrasive for your process, or if you're not certain what abrasive to use, again, our number is 828-202-5563. We can help you guys determine exactly what abrasive you need to be getting the best results possible on your parts. The abrasive itself will come in a bag just like this. And then you guys can easily just take the zip tie off. Now we can take our media. Again, I'm gonna step on the foot pedal. That's gonna close that pinch valve. Open this up. Open my floor. Take my media and dump it. So now that we've added the media into this machine, this thing is absolutely ready. It is ready to rip. But before we go, I want to explain the media density cup really quickly. Again, this is not something that you need to check whenever you're setting your machine up, because once you add your media in, that's the correct amount. But if you wanted to check your abrasive ratio to your water later on, let's say you feel like you've lost a little bit if you have an open loop machine, or some has actually come out into your closed loop basins, this is a great way to check it. The easiest way to do that is to go ahead and turn the air off to the machine. I'm just gonna use the main air switch here. Then you're gonna wanna take your blast gun. It's gonna have a little bit of air on it initially. You're gonna wanna let that go and dissipate. Now you can actually see that slurry. You can see that aluminum oxide in there, and I'm gonna take this cup and I'm just gonna put the blast gun in there, hold it in for a second, take it out. And using this, I'm gonna be able to see, you can actually already see the abrasive stacking up down there. You're gonna want about a 20% abrasive to water ratio, and that's just a really quick and easy way to check that. Now I think with that being said, we pretty much covered everything on the machine. Again, if you guys have any questions about technical information, the website is a great place to check. If you've actually purchased a machine, you guys will receive the code for the knowledge base page. It has a ton of information on it. It's just packed full of it. But if there's anything that you guys do not see the answer for and you need to know it, again, our number is 828-202-5563. We get questions all the time that we've never thought about before or never had. So seriously, if you have a question, the number is 828-202-5563. And that's the same number actually if you guys are ready to purchase one of these things and get the absolute best wet blasting equipment in your shop today. Again, that number is 828-202-5563. We hope this video was helpful and we hope you all have a great day. Thank you all for watching and peace.